So we are back with some more Hearthstone cards that have been revealed. The Warrior ones came out yesterday, the Druid ones came out this morning. I'm sorry, I have a life. Anyway, Boom Wrench. 4 mana, 3/2, weapon in Warrior, miniaturized. Death Rattle, trigger the death rattle of a random friendly mech. And then, of course, Boom Wrench. I don't think this card is very good in Wild. I mean, look, these are the new Death Rattle minions that came out for, or mechs that came out with it, and these are pretty mediocre. In Wild, you don't really have any good options with it. This is actually a really sad card because it feels like it would be a fun card. There's just nothing to really do with it, and that is kind of upsetting. So I just don't think it sees very much play. Testing Dummy, 6 mana, 4/8, mech, taunt, death rattle, deal 8 damage randomly split among all enemies. Like I'm saying, I don't think this is a good enough card to play in Wild. Uh, it's just kind of not a great card. It's 1 mana cheaper for a similar effect to Tonk, I guess, and Tonk is pretty mediocre in Wild. I just don't really see why you would ever play this card. Quality Assurance, 2 mana, draw 2 Taunt minions. This card will see play in Wild, however. Taunt Warrior is already like kind of fringe playable. It's not an amazing deck, but it is something you can play. And this card automatically slots in the deck. There's consideration to run this in Skipper Warrior as like a way to draw more cards for your Skipper turns. This is just going to be an actually good card in Wild. Recommend Deckham, 3 mana, choose a friendly mech, summon a copy of it that attacks a random enemy, then dies. You can play this with Ziliax in Wild, but that's probably the only card it's going to be even worthwhile playing with, and other than that, I just don't see the card doing anything in Wild. Safety Goggles, 2 mana, gain 6 armor, cost 0 if you don't have any armor. This is an incredible card, instantly slots into Even Warrior, instantly slots into any Odin deck, probably like any Odin deck, even Skipper Odin. This is just incredible card. Going to be a very strong card for a long time because it's 0 mana, gain 6 armor. It's just really good. Lab Patron, 4 mana, 3/3. The first time you gain armor each turn, summon another Lab Patron. So basically, if you play it and then gain armor, you'll have 2 Lab Patrons. You can't gain any more that turn, but the next turn, if they both live, you can have 4, and again, you can't get any more. Uh, I don't see this card doing anything in Wild. It's kind of just strictly worse than Grim Patron. Yeah, I mean, this card is kind of interesting. Like, for like a tempo card, it's a lot of stats for 4 mana. Like you play it with safety goggles, that's not the worst thing in the world, but I don't know. I just don't think it's very good. If it said someone a copy also, it'd probably be pretty decent because you could buff it, but there's that. It also has a signature art, which looks pretty awesome. I love the signature, but it sucks because this card is bad. Chemical Spill, 5 mana, summon the highest cost minion from your hand, then deal 5 damage to it. This is the card everyone's talking about. Everyone is talking about if Thaddeus gets reverted, you play this with Thaddeus, you cheat Thaddeus out on 6, and then you can OTK your opponent. Or on the coin, you can cheat Thaddeus out on 4 and OTK your opponent. This is an awesome card. This is going to see play in Wild. In these like Thaddeus decks, even if Thaddeus doesn't get reverted, there's still some like fun shenanigans you can do with this and Ramornia. You can give Ramornia charge for 8 mana instead of doing it on 10 mana, which is a big difference. And Ramornia will just deal a fuck ton of damage. She'll go back to your hero, so she can do it again the next turn. It's just going to be an incredible card in Wild. This will see play. And lastly, we have Bot Face, 9 mana, 3/9, Taunt Mech. After this takes damage, get 2 random minis. This is a callback to Rot Face, even though the mana, effect, tag, attack, and health, none of them are similar. None of the effects are similar to Rot Face, which is just why did they do that? But here are all the minis that are in the game right now. There's some pretty decent ones. If you get this one, you're like incredibly high rolling. If you get this one, you want to die. This one's fine. Like most of them are okay. This one's meh. Draw card is or draw spell is just fine. Tarim is meh. It's subdue for 1 mana. Tiger's plushie is fine. Boom wrench is pretty good actually. Uh, of course, Assembly Bot's great. Nostalgic Clown's fine. Nostalgic Gnome is fine, and then Nostalgic Initiate is fine at best. You're not happy if you get anything other than this, though. I mean, this one is just so significantly the best. It's kind of funny, but I mean, that's what you expect. It comes from a 10 mana card. I don't. This card obviously sees no playing wild. I was just talking about the minis because they're kind of cool. And now for the Druid cards. Wind Up Sapling, 2 mana, 2/1, tradable. Battlecry, refresh 1 mana crystal, trade to upgrade. This card is interesting because you could, if you are playing an Aviana Druid, this is a fun, or like a card that helps your combo turn. It'll give you more mana than you put in. It's, kind of decent, but I don't think you really are playing that in that deck. It's a fine card in that deck. There's just better cards to run over this, which means that the card probably sees no play in wild. It could maybe be okay in like an aggro druid. It's a technically a 1 mana 2/1 because you can refresh and like all that. But like, it's not an amazing card. It probably doesn't see any play. And Smolin, 3 mana nature spell. Reduce the cost and attack of minions in your deck by 1. This is supposed to synergize with Sky Mother Aviana, the legendary that is going to come up next. Or not next, but soon. I don't think this card sees any play in Wild, actually. There's no point to play it. You have Mana Cheat and Druid in better ways, and, like, you don't have to. It's just a mediocre card. It just doesn't do anything. Jade Display. 1 mana, 1/1, Death Rattle. Your Jade Displays have +1/+1 this game. Shuffle 2 of them into your deck. It's just Jade Golem again, but worse because the Jade spell is better. Uh, like, technically speaking, this is better because you can't get Skulking Geist, but the Jade spell, I don't know. I don't really think you care about this card in any means. Mildruid's dead after the nerfs. Technically, you can play these and shuffle at the same time with this and to get the stats and like out in play, but like because it's not a spell, you can't keep doing it. It has to die, and if it gets silenced, it's just ruined. It just is worse than like Jade Idol. It's just worse than Jade Idol. Sky Mother Aviana, 6 mana, 5/5, Battlecry. Shuffle 10 random legendary minions into your deck. They cost 1. Of course, you're supposed to use this within Smolin, so they cost 0, but this card just. Do I have to explain why this card sees no play in Wild, or why it's not actually a good card? Like, yeah, it's fun. It's going to be a funny card. I'll probably play it at least once or twice. A lot of people will play with it, but it's just an actually bad card. Druid can't support a card like this, and just in general, it's not a very good card in Wild. It's way, 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 way too slow. Sparkling File. 3 mana arcane spell. Deal 2 damage. Your next card this turn costs that much less. Yeah, this is a better arcane spell for Arcane Hunter that Druid got. This is a great card, actually. I'm not sure it will be great in Wild, but time will tell how the spell damage Druid archetype does. It's very interesting. I don't think it's amazing, but it at least has promise. The cards function together. They actually do something, and they do pretty strong things, all things considered. So I would not be surprised if these cards saw play. Woodland Warriors, again, 5 mana, summon 2/1/5 beetles with taunt, costs 3 less if you have spell damage. So you could play this on turn 2 and get 2/1/5s taunt. Incredible. This is like one of the reasons why the spell damage cards seem pretty good, is this is a lot of stats for 2 mana. Like, this like is pretty nuts of a card. I'm not gonna lie. If the whole spell damage package sees play, obviously this is going to be a big reason why. I'm going to say the spell damage package as a whole is maybe going to see play in Wild. These cards always go together in the same deck. They are all about the same power level. I'm not gonna lie. So I feel like it's very fair to say that overall they probably will be making some usage of some kind. Bottomless Toy Chest, again, 2 mana, discover a card from your deck. If you have spell damage, copy it. It's Moonlight Guidance, but better. Uh, it's better than Moonlight Guidance as long as you have spell damage, which when we get to the last card, you'll understand why you're always having spell damage. This is a great card. Actually, a great card. It's like I'm saying, it's Moonlight Guidance, but better. Like, you understand why I think that uh, these like arcane spells and arcane druid is actually pretty good. Then, here's the real kicker. Magical Dollhouse. Gains spell damage +1 this turn only, and it's a location. Location. So that means your opponent is never removing it because you're never running Demolition Renovator because that card sucks. So you're always going to have your on-demand spell damage, which in Druid is really good to have spell damage because you have Moonbeam and Solar Eclipse. So You have 4 damage instances for 3 mana. Say you have 2 magical dollhouses on board. You proc them both. That's +2 spell damage, right? That means it's going to be 12 damage for 3 mana. That's really, really good. And you can do that early, actually. That's kind of, yeah, wow. Actually, I didn't even realize that. You can do that really early. And then you can have Street Trickster, which is another +2 spell damage. So, for 6 mana, you can deal 20 damage. That's that's a lot. That's a lot of damage. And then if you have another Street Trickster, it's 7. So you deal 28 damage for, or you would just use another Moonbeam because you would have 10 damage right there. So yeah, and then you're playing Druid. You have a lot of mana cheat. You have a lot of discounts. It's not too unrealistic to see. Actually, I really do think Spell Damage Druid is going to be playable wild. Now that I think about it, holy crap, dude! Like I thought these cards were good. Don't get me wrong, but oh my gosh, you can just kill your opponent on like turn 6 from hand. That's gonna be disgusting. People are gonna hate this deck. Yeah, this is gonna be nuts. Aulonius, 7 mana, 6/6, spell damage +1. Your spells get double bonus from spell damage, aka you just have double spell damage. This is pretty nuts. I don't think this card is going in like a theoretical spell damage druid. However, you can play this in Malygos Druid, and now Malygos Druid can kill your opponent with like one spell. You play Solar Eclipse Moonbeam, you deal 52 damage with Aulonius and Malygos on board. It's not that hard to do. It's maybe it might be worse than the Astalor version of Dragon Druid. However, Malygos is a dragon which synergizes pretty decently with the deck. I genuinely think there's a world where this might be a playable card, and Malygos Druid might come back because of it. Uh, I mean, yeah, that's all I can really say. It just relies on if Dragon Druid swaps to Malygos away from Astalor, which is always a possibility. So this wasn't supposed to come out today, actually, Mystery Egg, but it did. It got leaked for some reason, but here it is. 5 mana, 0/3 miniaturized Death Rattle. Get a copy of a random beast in your deck. It costs 5 less. Card obviously sees no play. It's just a terrible card. I don't have anything to say about it. There's just not much this card will ever do. You never run it in Big Beast Hunter, and Big Beast Hunter doesn't exist in Wild anyway, so it is what it is.